most people would have their first tours be like 401 runs.
Right.
So it's pretty cool being so
I
like,
like that analogy there. Yeah.
it's like 401 runs where it's like, yeah, a local band takes you on like the 401. Like I like to call them en route tours because it's all like just the 401 like en route section of it.
Yeah.
And so it was nice knowing that I skipped that entire chapter of my life and I'm now like flying across the continent to do something like that. So it's really insane. Test. One, two.
That sounds good. At first, it was just like
clipping. Yeah, because I'm like,
yeah, no, but I think we're all good here. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. I'm super excited to be sitting down with a friend of mine from the Toronto GTA. Alice, thanks you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And Alice, we got to meet officially, I guess it would have been just over a year ago at New Friends 2019.
Yeah.
And I've been following your work for a minute and have seen your work grow over the years, and to see you get certain opportunities to go on tour with bands and do certain things has been really, really cool. So I'm glad that we're finally sitting down and getting to do this.
Yeah. It's very exciting. I'm excited to be here.
Sure. So before we get to like I was about to say headstrong, but I don't want to give Trap a free plug. Before we get too deep into it, can you just give me a formal intro of who you are, how you be known in like DIY or hardcore music, and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Alice. I am a photographer. I've been doing it for about 3-4 years now. I started off, just shooting at like a little basement in Ottawa, and then I didn't think that from like 2 years from now I'd end up like going to like California and shooting. But I honestly just started off, with like recognition from like the DIY and hardcore community just by just going to shows, shooting shows, meeting with people, and just being like, hey, like, is it okay if I shoot? Like I start off with like a camera, a kit camera with like really awful apertures that use flash, and then I'd always be like, is it okay if I use like my built-in flash and like a dive bar? And from then it was like, yeah, sure, like, you can shoot. Super excited to see your photos. And from that point on, it just grew. Like I shot, like it started from like local bands to like semi-local bands, and then played shows like touring bands that played at like little dive bars in like Ottawa or Montreal or Toronto, and then from then it just like grew. So I guess I guess with the traction I've been getting from my photos from bands and artists and people involved in the industry, I just sort of gotten some recognition from other people through that.
Yeah. It's always one band, one opportunity, one show at a time. And like we were talking just before we were recording, the grind is real when it comes to scheduling and trying to balance a normal life on top of that. So
it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
Yeah. So, and I'd love to talk about some of like the evolution of the gear, because I'm sure a number of people who are watching or listening are a little bit nerdy in that aspect, but can you kind of give me some context about how you got into just like DIY and heavier music, like first albums you were listening to, and just like how that morphed you into who you are?
Yeah. So I got into heavy music at a pretty young age. Honestly, like through anime, actually.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So it just sort of dealt from there, where I didn't know the genre. I was just like, oh, this is some heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. And then from some reason, I went from like listening to anime music to like, oh, indie, because I went to high school and I wanted to please everyone. So I was like, I'm gonna listen to some normal music.
Right.
So
some normie music.
Normie music. So I started listening to City and Color a lot, and from City and Color I also found out that Dallas Green was also in Alex is on Fire, and I was like, oh, I've heard of that band before. Like I didn't get into it, but when I was super into like Much Music and all that, like the good old golden days, I did see, I did hear like an Alexis on Fire song here and there, but I didn't get too into it. So I said I'll give them a chance, and then so Alexis on Fire was definitely the first like heavy band I got into, and then from there, I got into like post hardcore. So it was just nice of the whole like like the whole unclean and clean vocals all together, just making something. So from then it went from Alexis on Fire, and then it went to like Dance Gavin Dance, and then Dance Gavin Dance went to like more like I guess Rise Records core band.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I got into The Blood, and then I guess The Blood was what pushed me from going from like softer post hardcore to more like grittier sound.
Sure. Yeah.
So then I got a little bit bored with post hardcore at like 14, and then I was like, oh, what I want to listen to more heavy music, but like more in like not like metal, but like more like something closer to post hardcore. I wasn't too fond of screamo or anything, but I was like, I'll try it out. So someone recommended me Sophie's Floorboard, which is just like it's like a blog with like a whole bunch of like screamo and metal and just core bands in general.
Yeah.
And then from then I just looked up, and then I think the first band that caught my attention was like State Faults or Brother Bear at the time. And then I listened to Brother Bear. I did listen to them a bit in like and since they started like in 2010, but I wasn't super into them as much. So I didn't know they changed their name to State Faults in like 2014. Listened to their album Resonate Desperate, and I listened to it and I was like, oh man, like it felt like I just like discovered gold right there. Right. So then from then I got into screamo, and then I guess my interest of screamo at the time with my interest of like post-hardcore and like Midwest emo got me into the DIY scene. So I moved to Ottawa for a little bit to go to Algonquin College for media design. And I had my camera at the time, but I never did anything serious with it. It was just like at the time I bought it because I was like, oh, it's a expensive big camera that I can shoot anything with.
Sure. Yeah.
And then so I just did that, and then I went to my first little show at a little basement, Leaky Bees, which is now like not a thing anymore.
That's a pretty baller venue name, I would say. Leaky
Bees. Leaky Bees. It's pretty cool. I think it's so did my first show there, and it was like just like a bunch of like Midwest emo and like mathy emo bands, and brought my camera there, and from then it just started off like I guess that's when my career started. I didn't take it too seriously.
Right.
I was just like, oh, there's a show, I'll bring my camera. And then I met like people from like bands who were playing, and then they give me their socials and stuff just to be like, hey, like if you're ever gonna post these photos, here are my socials, like Instagram or whatever.
Sure.
And then from there it kind of just snowballed. Like I was like, oh, I didn't plan on taking it seriously. And then around like fall, it was just like, oh, I can make money off of this. Like local bands were talking to me about shooting for promos or covering their shows, or or it'd just be like a guest list, like something small, or free merch over it. So it's pretty cool. So I would say Ottawa was kind of where it began, and that's when I kind of got a name for myself. Mm-hmm. And then moved to Toronto, moved to Montreal for a bit, and I guess from there I didn't do much. I was still in school, and it was a little busy time.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Toronto for school. And I think around that time when I moved here, I realized I started taking more photography more seriously. So I didn't do shows. I did more portraits and stuff. And I realized,
gotcha,
hey, like I can do something with this. Like I've reached at a point in my career where I was like, oh, I think I'm good enough to make money off of this. So I decided, hey, I should do photography as like a living.
Sorry, Neri, I cut you off there.
Sorry. That's okay. But unfortunately, like the schools here did not offer photography the way I wanted it. It wasn't commercial. It was more like, oh, take a picture of a plant, turn it into art, and then there you go. It was more like fine art photography, and I realized that if I left, I probably wouldn't have learned much.
Sure.
So I decided to go to Toronto and go for more commercial photography. And then from there, I think Toronto was definitely like my big break. It was mostly because it was very expensive to live there, and I was like, man, just I cannot live off of like paycheck to paycheck just doing coffee for people under minimum wage, and my rent was like almost $1,000 a month. Like I couldn't make that happen. So I like, I hustled more and I put myself out there more.
Yeah.
And then and then like around May, like May of like 2019, I got hit up by Hayden from For Your Health, and they were like, hey, we like your photos. We want to take you on tour with us in September to the West Coast section of their tour. And I was like, yo, that'd be sick, because it's a beginning of a new chapter.
100%.
And it's not in Canada. Like most people would have their first tours be like 401 runs,
right?
So it's pretty cool being so like
I like that analogy there. Yeah,
it's like 401 runs where it's like, yeah, a local band takes you on like the 401. Like I like to call them en route tours, because it's all like just the 401 like en route section of it.
Yeah.
And so it was nice knowing that I skipped that entire chapter of my life, and I'm now like flying across the continent to do something like that. So it's really insane. And from that point on, it just got better and better and better. More people were like hitting me up, and it was because that band was already up and coming, so they had like a huge following already. So having like people from like bigger names in the DIY scene or in the hardcore scene seeing those photos was like, and then they'd be like, whenever we're on tour, we'll hit you up. And I was like, yo. And then the thing was I was still in school, so I didn't miss a week of school for that.
Wow.
But
lucked out.
I was like, I lucked out of that, and I was like, oh, it's just the first week of school, I wouldn't miss much, and I didn't. And then I told I told like my coordinator, I was like, oh, I wouldn't be there for the week.
Right.
And then they were like, well, if you're making money off of it, do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
He was like more happy that I got like a job than going to school. And I was like, sure.
Well, shout out to that professor to actually realizing that you had some sauce to what you were going on. And
it was pretty cool.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. But I think it's really cool that you were able to kind of showcase the gradual climb. And, I think, there's a lot of people that maybe want to rush to doing like photo and video work at live concerts. Obviously it's not the thing to do right now, just because there's no shows to document.
Exactly.
But not realizing the hours and the grind of like not going out to do like patio drinks on the weekend. You're like grinding on the computer to edit hundreds of photos that you took at a show. One thing you brought up and I wanted to hit on, do you think that bands in the screamo community are a little similar in the punk sense, where they won't have any social medias? Because when I was like posting all the sets from New Friends, I think maybe I'm talking out of my own butt right now, but I felt like half of the bands that I was trying to post, I couldn't find any socials for.
Yeah. I'd like to think that same issue with me with New Friends. Like I think out of all the bands I've covered, maybe a handful of them, like maybe like I can probably count with both my hands the amount of bands that had socials, and others where I had to like delve through like their personal accounts or whatever. But I think in a sense, like I feel like screamo is just, there are different types of screamo.
Sure.
Like I mean in terms of like, not in terms of music, but more in terms of just like the philosophy and the lifestyle they live, where like you have big bands that are known like Foxtails and all that have socials, and that's because they've had such a huge following already, thanks to like Scram Cave and all those other like platforms. And then you have bands that like you try to find out how did they even get like contacted to play these shows, because they're most of them are super silent.
Those are my questions. Like, is there a Gmail account or something? Like,
I don't even know. And I feel like it's just like, I also just a matter of like which wave of like the screamo community you were in.
Right.
And or just like how like how much of a veteran you are in the scene. I think that also helps a lot with it.
Yeah.
Like now we're at a wave, where the people who are joining these bands were similar to like in the 90s, and where they were, we're all like angsty 20-year-olds just wanting to get angry. We don't really want to we don't want to get big off of this. We just want to use it as an outlet.
Right.
But now that like for some reason again heavy music has a resurgence, it's like I can get angry, but I can also make a living being angry. But the thing is that screamo as it was 20 years ago is still an inaccessible genre.
Right.
like of course you can make music off of it and you'll get like 1,000 people, but if you want to make it full time, you kind of have to switch it up a bit. Like I've noticed that lots of bands that start off as screamo or screamo adjacent are now doing metalcore or hardcore, because either they've grown from the sound or they just know that if I want to make music full time, I can't just constantly make like screamo. Like lots of screamo bands are also just short lived. Like I can't think of a screamo band right now that's been around for more than like 10 years, and I haven't either switched their sound or just don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So,
and I think there's even in screamo, but also in other genres, there's almost like a notion of bands who will do side projects, but they won't do those side projects as full-time touring, exploring all the regions. They'll do like one-off fly-ins or something to that effect.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot too. Lots of side projects are either like hardcore or it's just completely different, where it'd be like dream pop or like like Pygmy Lush.
Very true. Yeah.
and then it's like they don't tour a lot. You don't see them tour the US a lot like they would with their main project. Yeah, like you said, it'll be like one-offs where it's either like a regional tour or like an interstate or a 401 run, like I would say. or it's just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna play one show, then not play for 20 years, and then come back and play it all again. I don't even know like what that is, but I think it was just more like, again, like there's something just about like, I don't know, screamo, where it's like, I guess the lyrical content and the overall emotion you get from it is like, it's cool until you're like 25, and then you're like all right, well, I'm 25, like I'm making songs about poetic like angst. I don't know if I can do this anymore. But like there's like there's a whole bunch of people who've been doing it for so long that like they're like practically legends, like Tom Schlatter from like Hundreds of AU, and they were in like so many bands, like You and I and Capacities and all that. And then I look at like people like him and I'm like, wow, like people like that will keep the flame going. And then there's just some people now like in the newer wave where it's like, super into it, but now I just don't see myself in it anymore. And I don't know if it's just like, again, because of the whole wave of like core bands now just having the spotlight again, it's almost like a resurgence or revival of like core bands again, and people are just like, oh man, a band something that was cool in like the 90s and like 2000s is now coming like back again in like the 2010s and 2020s. And I think like there's some sort of curiosity being piqued into that. And I can see they get into it. Yeah, and then they get into it and sort of like fade away from screamo. Like that's kind of what happened with me. Like I was super into screamo in like 2017, 2018, and then like I guess the whole wave of like these new core bands happened, and I just got super into hardcore and super into metalcore, and now like screamo's just like, it's not a thing of the past for me. It's like every so often I'll listen to like 1-2 screamo bands, but like I would probably listen to a core band more than like a screamo band at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just like I've been refined and like or if I'm just angrier as a person than I was back then. Like I don't know, but I would definitely say that like the wave of just these new core bands and like past core bands coming back have just been definitely like have refined my path as to where I want to go. Like seeing bands like See You Space Cowboy and like and Knock Loose and all those just playing big shows now,
Yeah.
which is like something you probably wouldn't have seen in like years back, is just insane.
I remember watching videos of Knock Loose playing to literally like 30 kids, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is this band? And now they're like, you know, they're
Now
probably
they're
the most influential core band to kind of steer things
That's
in the
it.
last few years for sure.
It's insane to think, you know, like, yeah, like a band that I'm sure they didn't think they were gonna do it full time, you know. They're probably just like, yeah, we're just angry kids making angry music. And then you release like a band, and then you release something through like Pure Noise, and then that album is now a staple of metalcore, where every local metalcore band and their grandmother is doing a cover of Counting Worms just to like please the crowd. It's like it's like, you know, just like, and that's the thing. And you just have to hear the ding ding. People are like, I already know what song this is. This is gonna happen. It's insane. It's cool to just see, like, you know, something that was probably considered lame like a decade ago is now just like so cool.
Yeah.
And people want to do it.
Yeah. And I've learned this with everything, is like when you have more eyes, maybe there's more like hate that comes your way, as people being like, yeah, I don't like this. It was really weird when we were doing that. We did a playlist that kind of featured like Black musicians in hardcore and metalcore, and it went out way more than I expected. I think the highest amount of likes on a playlist band graphic I've ever gotten was like 300. And I got 800. So people were just like pushing it out. And then all these people were like, why isn't this band? Why isn't Jesus Piece on here? It's like, there's a reason I didn't put Jesus Piece. Like, they are like, if people are going to be like, oh, I listen to Black musicians, they're always going to point to Jesus Piece. So
they're
I was
like, say Jesus Piece. Yeah.
I'm like, let's try and feature some bands that aren't signed, have less than 1,000 followers.
But yeah, Jesus Piece is the Bad Brains of metalcore, pretty much.
Yeah.
like I love Jesus Piece. I love them so much. I love Aaron, but like, it's of course, if you know, of course, if I go to metalcore,
I think it's
an easy pick. That's it. It's just it's just the same thing. Like, if I was a Black person at a punk show, they'd be like, you listen to Bad Brains, bro? It's the same thing as like, you know, oh, you're at a metalcore show, you listen to Jesus Piece, bro? Like,
yeah.
like, and yeah, there's just so many like Black bands out there that deserve so much more like recognition.
Yeah.
And like, it's nice that like that playlist like showed me so much I was just not aware of.
Oh, awesome. That makes me happy to hear that.
And it was great, you know, like I honestly think that like, yeah, like black musicians just get swept under the rug so much, and just, you know, just because the scene is just majorly white, you know, and like those who make it into the big leads are usually like either all male or all Black or all white. Sorry. Yeah. And so it's nice to know that, you know, there are certain bands that are helping that out with, like, you know, like, yeah, such as like Jesus Piece and Bloodbather and Unity TX and all of them, like spearheading like the whole Black, like, people of color heavy scene, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to know that, you know, there are other bands out there that deserve the same amount of recognition, if not, you know,
100%.
Enough.
yeah And I think, like, you know, shout out to Move, to Be All End All, End It, Buggin'. There's so many there's so many bands that I found out the first time that we did that, and I guess we'll call it the second wave, because and I'm hoping, you know, with all the conversations that are going on right now, that we move into an era of hardcore where, like, where white people are the minority, and there's just this sea of beautiful races and just diversity to what everyone at a hardcore show would be like, oh yeah, we're diverse, but like, you know, there's maybe two dudes who are Black at the hardcore show.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's one thing I loved about LDB. When I went to LDB, it was like, every hardcore show I've gone to here is like, you know, I'd either be the only Black person, or, you know, for one Black person, there were like 10 white people.
Sure.
Whereas LDB, I felt really at home because there was diversity right there. Of course, yeah, like there were like a majority of white people, but like it was nice going to a
You
show
could
and
see
being like,
the
yeah,
mix
like
up.
from an like an eye shot, I'd see like a sea of black people, and then like, or like just black people in the pit just enjoying themselves. And it was nice to see that, coming from a scene where I'm the biggest minority, and it was just nice seeing like, hey, like there's so much like black unity and unity of people of color in a scene like that. And having that platform to do so, like, yeah, like bands like Bugging just having that platform and using that platform that they have to, spread awareness of like, like the issues that we have as black people, and not just in the scene, but like in like America and then other countries as well.
Yeah.
And it's just really nice to, to know that, especially in this little community of hardcore, that lots of black voices are being heard.
Yeah.
And hopefully from then pushes up.
Yeah, and I think like I've learned a lot, especially talking with like Brianna and Braxton and like all these other people on some separate podcasts about like, just learning the fact that like, just because someone has that like minority aspect of their race or, whatever, they aren't, we as, the white people, if you want to call call it that, shouldn't be expecting, those messages in the music. Like Brianna was saying, like, I just want to write music about posers and just like have a good time. And I think that we should, not, not put expectations on that and just let the music be the music. And if it's political, that's awesome. And if it's not, that's cool too.
That's cool too.
So on that topic, you were mentioning that like, you feel like going to maybe a local show in Toronto, like you're one of the biggest minorities in the crowd, not only being black, but also being non-binary. And I guess I was curious on just like what goes through your mind on some of those occasions, because not only are you comparing or just like seeing that from like a crowd aspect, but also people in our shared common interest of documenting bands. So because I only off the top of my head, shout out Carissa if you're listening, as far as knowing one other non-binary photographer, but when it comes to like a black photographer, I struggle to name drop someone. So talk to me about that aspect of finding that identity in a C word that's not common by any means.
It's very tough. And I'm gonna be honest, if it wasn't for Twitter, I would have probably not found another black photographer. Right, like Twitter has helped me so much, just finding like a non-binary and a black, or a black non-binary photographer, and it's helped a lot. But it's really tough. Like I sometimes sometimes it feels like I have to like push harder to even give myself a little platform. It's like the platform I have right now is great. I didn't think I'd make it this far, solely because for the same reason that like I'm black and I'm non-binary. It was just like that's already two minorities that like people just shrug away from. And it was weird, like being on the photography community on Twitter for like almost 2 years now. It was weird how like non-binary or like black non-binary photographers would do so much beautiful work and like outstanding work, only for it to get like maybe less than 100 likes. And then like a cis white male photographer will take a picture of like a naked girl on the train tracks, and it'll get like 200,000 like likes and like a sponsorship with Canon and all that. Right. And it was just weird to see that, and a part of me was like, it boggles my mind to see like what is going on, that, these opportunities are given to like exploited like photographers who are just like, I have a camera, compared to like people who are just like me, who are actually doing work with the camera and doing art with it. And I like, it's weird. But if there's one thing I've noticed recently too, is that while we are getting a platform right now because of the, the whole current like racial tensions and everything. Sure, yeah. I just it still feels weird to me, that we are giving a voice to talk to, we're giving a platform to share our work with, but it feels weird because it's like it took like a black man to die for us to have that platform. And sometimes sometimes like it feels like people are choosing us just because we're black, like it's like I get it, like you want to show that there is more diversity in the community, but at the same time it feels kind of performative when people are like, that's a black non-binary photographer, we'll pick them just because.
Right.
Like
I got you.
it feels weird, it feels performative. And like, as much as I appreciate getting a platform for it, it's like there's more to it than just my skin and what my identity is. Like,
sure,
like my portfolio's out there, my Instagram's out there, my Twitter's out there. Maybe, like, yeah, sure, pick me if you want my photos, but if you're still looking for a diversity quota, make sure that the diversity quota isn't just because I'm diverse,
sure,
and it's because there's quality behind it.
right.
And I mean, I'm happy. I'm like, again, like I said, it's like I'm really happy that we are giving a platform for it. But it just sucks to think what happened in order for us to get this platform.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, like, it. I've heard similar perspectives and feelings around that with other guests, where they've talked about like alternative press doing this like black bands you need to listen to now, and it's like, okay, like, like, well, I think it was Braxton who was talking about that it was like his homie, and they put his face big banner on the blog post, and he's like, I'm not even in that band anymore. Like, I was,
but I saw that
no.
tweet.
So
it's like really funny.
This conversation, I hope on the outside doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just like trying to make sure that I'm in check. Like, me and you have talked about doing this for a while. And I'm not saying that you're coming at me with that, but I do agree that there is this weird like people want to keep the conversation rolling versus just like, oh, I'm posting my selfies at the beach now. But like, like I hope that this is a conversation that we continue to talk about, and that when we do, certain lists to highlight like a photographer, it's just like included in there, and then people are just finding that out, like, oh yeah, I didn't know that Alice was not black and non-binary. That's awesome. Versus like big spotlight on you.
Just because that's the thing. It feels, and like and that's the thing that also bugs me, because it makes people in the opposing views think that we want that, like we want to have the spotlight on us, and it's like, no, that's not what we want. We want equality. And then it's nice that you're giving the privilege and the priority to us, but it's like we're not trying to be like overthrow how things are. It's just like, if you're doing something, like a list or recommendation, maybe it'd be nice, to just add it on there, instead of being like, oh, by the way, this band has a black person in it. Like
it's essentially adding all these asterisks to like that, and it's like everyone should like be on the same playing field. I think I saw a graphic where it's like what people on the opposing side think what Black Lives Matter mean, and it's like a black fist above like every other shade. But in realistically, and this was like the fold of that graphic, it's like all the fists at the same level.
That's it.
Yeah. So
that's it. And like that's the thing. It's that even now with like the whole Black Lives Matter movement, like getting a platform, a bigger platform than it did in the past few years, it just feels weird now that like silly things are happening where it's like Simpsons are like, we're not going to cast white people for people of color voices. Family Guy is not doing it either. And then like they're changing things to like Black Lives Matter Plaza and all that. And it's like, no, we just want to be seen as equal. We don't want a pedestal. Like, if we're giving a pedestal, make sure that the pedestal gives us in the same equal height as everyone else. That's all we want. We don't want to be put on top of everyone else. And it's these type of performative actions why the opposing view is like, why not all lives matter? Because people are just making it seem like only we should be the spotlight, when it's like, no, we just want to be treated the same way as you would with other counterparts.
Right.
And
yeah, I think I saw something where it's like, yes, all lives matter, but saying that is completely disregarding what we're actually trying to accomplish here.
that's it. Yeah, it's yes, all lives do matter. That's not what that's not what Black Lives Matter is trying to discard.
Yeah.
It's just that if in the States or in Canada, Black people make up maybe less than 15% of the population, but yet when it comes to like, crimes, like, sorry, getting like arrested by like cops and getting arrested and just being treated like crap in the judicial system.
Yeah.
When the amount of systemic racism we have to deal with is like on a chart breaks the scale compared to everyone else, then that's what we mean. It's like, yes, like all lives do matter, but like if we're a small population yet we're making up so much of the amount of systemic discrimination that's happening right now, then we just want that to happen.
Yeah.
So that's why people say all lives don't matter until Black lives do, because again, all lives matter just pushes under the rug the problems we have to deal with. Mm-hmm. And even that, it's not like we're saying white people don't deal with the same issues we do. Of course, there are white people who get shot by cops, who get mistreated by cops, who also deal with the same amount of discrimination. It's just that systemically it does not add up to the amount of discrimination we face.
Yeah.
Like statistically it just does not make sense.
Yeah, the stats don't lie. And
exactly.
And I think shout out to anyone in the States who is like just essentially giving the middle finger to like July the 4th, and everyone's like being patriotic. It's like all countries matter. Like,
yeah, okay, that killed me. My favorite tweets were like the all countries matter, and then someone was like, because Bob Ross died like 25 years ago, yesterday, and they were like, yeah, like screw America, I'm gonna commemorate Bob Ross, and then they were like, happy 4th Bob Ross, and I was like, I love this.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, yeah, that too. It's just and same with like Canada. Like I think that's also one thing I want to talk about, is just like we're not perfect either.
Yeah.
People in the States are like, well, man, I could be in Canada right now, or Canada must like enjoy being like a peaceful country. And it's like, no, like Black people still face the same amount of discrimination, and Indigenous people face it even more. Mm-hmm. So it's like, even here, like when Canada Day happened, people were like waving the middle finger in Canada, being like, no, like we're celebrating 153 years of like discrimination and treating Indigenous people like crap. It's like, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
Like
it feels like, and I was seeing it with both, just because it's in the same week, and just like how like what do we actually have to celebrate for that we like maple syrup and beavers? Like,
yeah, I would. Like, we like maple.
Yeah, like
it's like we like maple syrup, beavers.
Yeah, like
and free healthcare.
Yeah, like they're like. I think that overall, like just it makes me excited that the conversation is moving forward of like, no, like we shouldn't be celebrating these things that are like there are so many things flawed with both countries, and we really can't plant a flag or shoot off fireworks until like there's some actual change.
Yeah that's it.
Yeah,
and it is.
Yeah, it's a messy time. But to go back to that, I wanted to make sure that we didn't miss this point, because you brought it up as far as like people being like following your work just based off of your skin color versus like, do they actually like your work? And me and my wife did like some it was like a couple shoot thing, and they had a number of different photographers all taking photos at the same time, and I followed up with like a few of them that I did like their photos. And then I saw one of them just during this time, they were like, unfollow me if you're just following me because of like the color of my skin. Like, I'm not here to like, be your token box for your community. Yeah. So, have you had a face-to-face like confrontation with someone in that regard, or has it just been like an online, like, I'm not 100% sure if you're fucking with me because of the right reason?
it's always been online. I've like face to face. It's more, I don't know. Like I feel like people are more reserved face to face when it comes to like stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas like yeah, online I've seen it a lot. Where I mean like recently I did a little interview about what it's like being non-binary, and I there are just people who were like following me, and like I mean it was nice to give a platform about it, but yeah, there were just people who like I know were just following me because it was like, oh, you're black and non-binary. I don't care about your work. I just need someone, so I don't, to come off as performative or woke or whatever.
Right.
And I've had a few people where, and it usually happens a lot in like online forums more than like like in face to face, like one to one. It's like, like like someone will just be like, oh, I'm looking for like I'm looking for black photographers, and it's like a white person, and or I'm looking for like a black like blank, and then I'll just be like, what's like, if what you're looking for is just because they're black, and it's not because the content they deliver or the quality of their work that impresses you, then there's no point of making this threat at all.
Right.
It's just like you're coming off. It just seems like you're like you're writing it, and then you're like, yeah, that'll please the blacks. It feels
Sure.
it
Yeah.
feels weird.
Right.
It feels weird. Sorry, yeah.
No. I totally agree that I it doesn't feel like that's a good intention kind of thing where it's like, oh, I'm trying to do this, where like just look at someone's work and how they execute it, and hopefully you're not taught that like you're going to make a final decision based off seeing them face to face. Like the work should just speak for itself. That's probably what that saying is trying to get at.
Yeah, the work should just speak for itself, and if you like it, sure, follow me, like there's just like, and I've noticed a lot too, I got a weird wave of followers, I think like recently on Instagram, and it's weird because you can tell who's really here for the work and who's just really here to have like a token following, just based on the interaction of your post, and based on of course, there's multiple factors like, the crappy algorithm in every platform and all that.
Yeah.
But it's like even from then, you can, based on the interactions you get, you can easily tell who was there because they actually support your work, or who was there because they're like, yeah, I saw your name on a thread of like black creatives, I think I should follow you just to look like a good person, but I'll never talk to you, I'll never interact with your work, I frankly don't give a damn about your work, I just want a black person on my following.
Yeah.
So I don't.
And that follow is like, not for you. It's really for them to be like.
It's really for them.
Doing my part. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Like I gain nothing from it, and they're definitely not gonna gain anything from it other than like a clutter, I guess. And it's like that's the thing. It's just like it's so like not genuine. It's just gross.
Yeah, and I'll apologize for when this podcast goes live if you get a surge of followers based off of that, but I
oh, that's fine.
I back your work a lot. I was really, really impressed with the photos that I saw, and like again, like I said, stated at the beginning, like it's been cool to see you getting the opportunities that you're getting. To kind of shift back to the photography aspect, do you want to rattle off some of the nerdy gear stuff as far as what you're shooting with, what you edit with, all that kind of stuff?
So currently I use a Canon 60 to shoot. I did the upgrade exactly like last year exactly, I think.
Okay.
I did the upgrade just in time for my first tour gig. I had a 60D back then. It was a crop frame. Didn't like it. I liked it until I got into the gist of photography, and I was like, I don't like it. So got a Canon 60, very good starter full frame camera. Would definitely recommend it to like anyone who wants to start full frame, or if anyone wants to go from crop to full, perfect starter for that. As lenses go, I, depending on what I do, I have different lenses for it. So like portraits and stuff, I use like my Nifty 50. So it's a 50 millimeter with 1.8, yeah, 1.8, 1.4 aperture. I don't remember. I haven't touched a camera in like months.
Yeah.
um, and I have a 35 millimeter, which is perfect for like it's really perfect for just of medium length. Like anything medium length is good. My go-to lens for concerts is a 14 mil. Just wide angle lenses are just my thing. Like it there's just something about it where it makes you feel more immersive in a concert than like a full like a full length or like a medium length camera lens. So and especially with me usually still shooting like dive bars and like DIY venues and some smaller venues, it's really nice to have a 14 mil where it takes the whole entire scenery of what it is, like from the ceiling to the top without, I guess, too much distortion.
Sure. Yeah.
So the 14 mil is really perfect for that. That's my go-to lens, like I said, for especially for the past 2 tours I've done. I've always used that. And if I was gonna do like little B-roll stuff, like for just like shooting cute stuff on the road or whatever, I'll use my 35 or my nifty 50.
Right.
But for shows, it's always my 14.
Yeah.
And my flash is just a Godox flash. I don't remember the model of it, but Godox is really good for what it costs. It's like it's like almost professional level, but you're paying less than like $100 for it, or even less than 250 max for like the best you can get.
Right.
So flash is what I use for that, is the Godox flash. I don't remember the name of the model.
Yeah.
Again, because I haven't shot in like 5 months.
Yeah.
And then like for SD cards, I have like five, and they're always between 32 or 64 gigs with like 10 speed. Yeah, 10 speed and like 4K and 4K filming and all that. So which is perfect for I started doing video on my last tour in like in December with Frail Body and For Your Health, and it was perfect. It was great. It caused me no problems. But then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do more video this time. And then right now, if it weren't for COVID, I would have been on tour with For Your Health like for like almost 50 days.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been like
you would have needed to have an external just for that tour. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and yeah, I always bring my external too, just in case. Yeah. But I would have had an external just for that, where yeah, it was 50 days, and we were gonna start in Vancouver and then full US, one Mexico date, and then back in Toronto for new friends. But yeah, COVID.
Yeah. Okay. So going back, you listed off some of the gear, and how, like I've seen some of your work on some recent tours, and I know a lot of people that use that like more fisheye kind of those kind of like wider lenses will do stuff like really high up above like a drummer or vocalist, or like get it like really close so it like really
it's like
creates it in that kind of like show like environment. But I saw that there was some times where you're actually holding the camera really low to the ground and shooting upwards. There's one photo, and forgive me for not remembering the band name, but there's like the drummer and either the bass player or guitarist, and just like how you composed that was like really cool and unique to see. So is some of that just like experimenting with different angles while you're doing that, or is there specific photographers that you're pulling influence from for that?
100%. The low angle thing I've definitely pulled off from Brandon DaCosta. Okay. It was just like he's also the reason why I got a 14. Because I spoke to him before, like a few days before tour. We were at Rarity's album release show, and then I was just like, what lens do you use? Because I've tried, like I had a 24 in my crop frame and I didn't like it. It didn't work. And he's like, I got a 14, so I like bought it on Amazon immediately, and I was like, cool.
Yeah.
But the low angle thing I've definitely gotten from Brandon DaCosta is just the way he does it is just really nice. It feels cinematic in a way when he does it. So I was like, I should try that out. And then from then, when I started doing it, I noticed that the photos showed more dimension and more like composition. and it was just beautiful. So it started from that, and then like all the other, and then I realized that, hey, I have a wide angle. So instead of just always doing up, I can do like, and like from down up, I can do like from up down, or different weird things with the angles. And from, so like 9 times out of 10 it is experimenting what I do, but I'd be a liar if I said I didn't pull it off from someone. So
Right. Yeah.
like seeing Brandon do that with his like 14 mil was like, I like, this is cool. I want to do it, you know. And it's nice that like, you know, something that like I kind of like got inspired from is not like a trademark of my style, you know. It's like people look at my photos and are like, yeah, wide angle, unique angles, all that, and it's like, yeah, it's just all my wide angle, like, doing the job.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer, if like, you know, people always argue like originality is dead, but I think that you take influence from a bunch of different things and you put it together to make your own thing. Like
to make it yours. Yeah.
Some of my very early like videos, even before Scoped, I was like, this is like very close to copy and pasting Sonny's work. But now like I feel like I've definitely honed my own, like, you know, there's obvious influence, but like the way I shoot and edit and just distribute, I feel is more like,
is like more you. Yeah.
Is more me for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same. It's like, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like there's just so many, like from early on, you know, like there's just so many things where it feels, you know, like if like I look at it, I'm like, this is a copy paste to someone. I'm so certain. Like I'm gonna get like flamed for it. I'm gonna get like knocked out for it. And then, you know, I just implement them all together. And then it's just nice now. Like now, you know, I can post a photo, or someone will look at a photo and be like, that's an Alice photo. Like Alice did that photo. Right. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's cool. And, you know, like, yeah, like before, you know, in my earlier shoots that I don't have photos for anymore, thank God. Like my style was like, yeah, faded colors, and then I didn't like it. And then I went to, you know, more vibrant colors, and I was like, I didn't like it that much. And then I think I grabbed from someone like the whole concept of grain, just like because I saw a friend of mine who was shooting with film, and I was like, oh, I love the feel of film. So, you know, grain has always been a part of me since then, and I don't think I can ever get that out of my life now. But grain has always been a part of my photos, and yeah, like again from Brandon, just the whole wide angles and stuff, and implementing that, yeah, with the grain and like the high contrasts of like my black and whites and all that. I feel like now when people look at a photo, you know, they're like, I know who shot that, you know, which is cool.
Yeah,
because I was struggling.
Yeah, and I think it's totally fine to like, you know, like not point out like deliberately, but like I can definitely say that there's some similarities with your photo work to like Cole, who's on our team, as far as the wide angle black and white style. Gabe, the pigeon in California, also does a lot of that, but I know all those people do a number of different styles as well. And I like, when you think about it, if you or I, as far as being a creative, is going to be doing this for like, you know, 60 years in total, obviously there's going to be some ebbs and flows, changes in styles and work. Like who knows, in 10 years Scope could not even look like what it is right now. I almost bet on that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I even told myself, like I'm sure like 5 years from now, like, and I've noticed that like every year I look at a photo, you know, and I guess it's normal for creatives. So every year you look at a photo and you're like, I shot that. I can't believe I shot that. That doesn't look like that doesn't look like my style. So like I'm even willing to bet that like, you know, like 5 years from now there's gonna be a whole big gap between like what I shoot now and what I'm going to shoot then, and the style it has, and the compositions and everything it has. Like that's the one thing that's cool with photography, is that and videography and all just creative stuff, is that it looks liminal from a surface point of view, but once you really get into it, there's just so much you can do. And every year, and a year is being like a bit, I guess, like generous, but like maybe even like 3 months, someone will come in and break a new dimension, and on how photography should be. And then that dimensional break will cause a new trend and people will just do it, and
Yeah.
it becomes a part of the photography standard. And that's what's cool with it, is that, you know, to think that maybe 5 years ago the standard was, yeah, keep your composition, rule of thirds, all that, and then now, you know, in an era of like editorial type photography, it's like, man, rule of thirds doesn't matter, like whatever, you shoot whatever, it's fine, it'll look good. And it's just amazing to think that you know, like that standard changes every, like, very often. And
Hard agree on that.
hopefully, yeah, and hopefully that, like, that constant change of standards will make it so that people don't feel too demotivated into shooting, because I've noticed that, like, that's the one thing that people always have a problem with when they start with photography, is that they're like, I don't have a good eye, you know, or it's like, these photographers do it like this, and I don't want to fit in that box, and if I have to fit in that box to get a platform, I just don't want to do it. And, you know, and it's like cool to see now, especially on Twitter, where every photographer don't like every photographer has their own different standards, and those standards are what's helping them grow. And then hopefully from that, it's just realizing that, like, photography is just like visualizing things in your style, and not just visualizing things in the standard that, you know, you're taught at school, or you're taught in like a photography workshop.
Yeah. And yeah, I was thinking about this earlier too. Like there's definitely not a oh, I'm getting the charge your laptop alert. But there's definitely not a well, what's happening, Spencer? My screen's going black. Okay. Yeah, there's definitely not like a show photography 101 or anything like that. A lot of that is like just learn the hard way with people pushing you out of the way or kicking your camera out of your hands, or like shooting an entire show and being like, oh, I don't like any of these, or whatever it is.
Yeah, but it's like, I for that, like, even in school when I was going for it, like, there was no show photography or 101. You know, there was event photography 101, but then even then it was like, not like, you have to do this.
Photography doesn't teach you about stage dives and
crowd that's killers. It, you know. Yeah, that's it. It's like, yeah, I mean, maybe if you, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, event photography can help, but it won't teach you the hazards of, someone crowd killing, or someone stage diving, or dealing with someone who does not want their photo taken, so they swat it out your hand, or they don't do you with, oh, what happens when, you know, you're shooting, and the main band is playing at, you know, with red lights, and there's a 3-song minimum, the 3-song maximum, and all those 3 songs are like 45 seconds. What do you do then? Right. You know, like, they don't teach you stuff like that.
Where's the chapter on stage potatoes and how to deal with them?
You know, how to deal with them, you know, or so it's nice. Yeah, like, that's a cool thing with show photography, is that you learn something every day. I don't think even like the masters of it, like Adam Olmakias, who could say that, you know, they're a master at it, that they don't need to learn anything new.
Right.
Like, it was cool when they did the editing challenge, and then I posted my edit challenge, and it got featured on his YouTube as like the best photo he had. And then he was awesome. and then he was like, yeah, you should do a tutorial on that, because that's insane. I was like, yo, if even like the king of like concert photography is like, got teach you how to do that, I'm like, yo, like, even like, there's no such thing as like being like well versed in it.
Right.
And that's the like, concert photography is just a thing of hazard. It's like, you're not on your way to a concert knowing what's gonna happen, right? Like, you're not gonna be like, okay, I'm sure this person's gonna use like blue lights the whole time, I'm going to like prepare a preset for it and everything. Like, you never know. And that's also one thing I like worth mentioning too, is that the fun of show photography goes from the minute you hear about it and you're ready to go, from like post production and when you're sending it. Like, it's just nonstop. It's just a nonstop like learning process throughout. And I think it's just cool, and that's what makes it really fun, and that's what motivated me to get into it more. It was just like, compared to all the other forms of photography, this one is just like, I could be doing this for like 25 years and I'll still be like, all right, I didn't know that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Well, whoa, this happened, I have to take a picture of it. Like, it's just amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to kind of wrap up here, is just like the overall never getting, I'm going to say this poorly, but just there's never a dull moment at a hardcore
There's
show.
never a dull moment. Yeah, especially at a hardcore show.
Yeah.
Like, insane. Like, the Knock Loose show, the Knock Loose did a surprise set in LDB, so that like already got me. And then just taking that photo of that guy who jumped on the monitor off. Like,
right, yeah. I do remember that one. Yeah.
Did not like, I don't know why, but like, I guess because I was so into like Knock Loose playing that like I just shot anything happening. And then when I edited the photos,
it wasn't even like, oh, this is happening. It was just like,
not even. It was just like, oh, yeah, literally. It was just like, oh, wow. And then I took like, and then like I was editing and I saw like that shot, perfect shot. I'm like, yo, what? Like, I took that.
That's
oh my god.
Cool.
So that's it's just like small joys like that makes it so fun to do, and like that's why I want to do it often.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Alice, this has been a really great conversation. I feel like we hit on some fun stuff, on some serious stuff. Is there any final wrap up thoughts that you want to share on photography, on really anything that you want to kind of send off the audience?
I mean, despite living in some awful times right now, you know, it's never a dull moment to you know, hone your skills, whether it be from editing or just shooting. You know, there's so much to do out there, despite, you know, like social distancing. There's so much to do on the computer. You know, there's never a dull moment with photography. You know, take some old photos, edit them to your style, shoot some new stuff outside. You know, discover some new paths onto photography that you may not even know you had an interest in until today. So you know, despite living in some, you know, awful times where we can't go out and do much, it's still a perfect time to, you know, grow, so that when we finally find a vaccine, we can be titans, I guess, of photography.
Titans of photography. I don't think that could have been said any better. How do people keep up with your work on social, or a website that you want to plug?
So you can catch me on Instagram, Hirsch.cr2. My Twitter is _Alice Hirsch. And yeah, those are the two best places you can find my work. My portfolio is hirschmedia.ca. And yeah, those are places you can see my work and interact with me if you want.
Awesome. Well, Alice, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you squeezing me in the middle of you helping a friend move today.
No worries.
And yeah, hopefully we can do this again real soon.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that too. Thank you so much.